back to the State Champ studio for The Draw. Elizabeth Kuehl here with Emma Kuehl, and man, you've had a busy weekend.
Absolutely, yeah, huge weekend for my Lawrence Tech team.
Yeah.
We ended up winning our conference tournament, so really, really ecstatic.
Yeah.
Punching our ticket to the NAIA National Tournament next week. So really happy with our performance and really excited to get our new season going.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you looking forward to most? We're going to talk a little bit about it a little bit later in the show, but what are you looking forward to?
You know, I mean, number one, the weather. It's going to be warm. You know, I think we're all looking forward to being out there in our shorts and T-shirts. But just, you know, the next level of competition. I'm really excited to see how we stack up. We're going against Benedictine in the first round.
Okay.
So really excited to see them. And, you know, I know there's been a little bit of history with LTU and Benedictine. So can't wait to get down there and get on the field.
Yeah, well, big congratulations to you and your team. We're going to talk a little bit about them later in the show, but let's get to some highlights. We saw some really big games this week. Cranbrook at Detroit Country Day. Detroit Country Day got the big win. This team has been great this season.
Yep, you know, DCD came out really hot. I think by the end of the first quarter, they were leading by maybe 6. I think it was 8-2. So, you know, they just got rolling, and once DCD gets rolling, it's really hard to stop. So Detroit Country Day, their offense was just clicking. And, you know, once they get going, it's hard to stop them. So they had some stellar defensive plays, really good work in between the 30s. And then, yeah, their offense, you know, led by Hadley Keating, just really spectacular.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Putting up great numbers. They've been putting up great numbers all season long. Just talk about that force on offense.
You know, it's huge for them. I think there's a lot of confidence within their offense right now. And there's certainly a lot of threats. They don't rely on 1 or 2 people to get the job done. They have multiple options, which, you know, as a coach is really comforting to have that ability because your best players are going to see the best defenders. So, yeah, you know, I think it was a great game for them against Cranbrook, you know, kind of get back on track after a big weekend that they had out on the west side, and it's always fun to have a rivalry game with Cranbrook.
Yeah, absolutely. And 2 top 10 teams in our next matchup, East Grand Rapids and Forest Hills Northern Eastern. East Grand Rapids took home a big win, 14-7. Just talk about that.
Yeah, huge win for them. Again, something that will only help them build confidence. Watching a little bit of the game, it looked like they had a solid game plan going into it, you know, especially against Forest Hill Northern Eastern, their zone defense. EGR was winning a lot of the possession on the draw, and then they were very methodical with their offense. Lots of passing around, looking for cutters on the inside. So, you know, again, I think they had a solid game plan going in and executed it really well.
Yeah, and how important is that at this point in the season to kind of get those big wins against teams that they're doing good as well?
Yeah, so, I mean, again, it's a really good confidence builder. It's a really good way to test some new things that you might, you know, put in as a coach and try some different looks. You know, these teams will be facing each other many more times as we progress to the postseason. But, you know, again, just a great confidence builder for EGR and a solid win for them.
Yeah, and talking about Forest Hills Northern Eastern, they've been in your top 10 all season long. They put up 7 goals. You know, just talk about this group, and that's not a bad game.
You know, not a bad game at all. And I think when you look at the rankings, number 2 through 7, the parity between that group is really solid. You know, I think any given week it can shift and people can, you know, go up in the rankings or down in the rankings. It really depends on who they play. But yeah, the number 2 through 7 in the rankings, again, they're just, you know, pretty evenly matched. So it could change every single week. I think Grand Rapids Catholic Central has certainly earned their top spot. They had an extraordinarily convincing win over Detroit Country Day over the weekend. So, you know, they're putting up some serious offensive numbers and other teams are having a lot of trouble getting through their zone.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to talk a little bit more about this LTU matchup, this big win. Just walk me through that moment when the time's running out. You guys got the job done.
Yeah, so, you know, the fourth quarter, I have to admit, wasn't our best quarter. But at the end of the day, you know, the team knew what we had to do in order to be successful. I think we dominated our possession. In the first 3 quarters, defense really stepped up and held IT out of the 8-meter. But yeah, just all in all, like a really solid win, a team win. A lot of preparation went into it. So couldn't be happier with how it ended up.
Yeah, and obviously it's a team effort. What makes this group so special?
We're a really small group, and there's pluses and minuses to all of that. But I think, you know, we're really close knit. People can almost read each other's minds when we're out on the field,
Yeah.
so you don't have to have kind of that higher level of communication when you're out there. But it's a fun group. They like to challenge each other. They like to compete against each other on a daily basis at practice, and I think that lends itself to success when it comes to games.
Yeah, and moving forward, what are going to be the steps to prepare as you get ready and head out?
Yeah, I mean, again, we're just going to hit the scout pretty hard in the next few days, really learn what makes Benedictine click. And then, we have a few adjustments to make within our own team, and, just working hard at practice and putting it all together.
Yeah, you guys have been there, done this before. What really gives you the upper hand? You've been through these experiences. How does that help you?
I think, again, confidence. We've been in the arena before, so we kind of know what to expect, and we really embrace the upper level competition that we're going to face. So, once we get down there, the bright lights and the big stadium, that whole atmosphere won't have, as big of an effect on us as if we were just kind of fresh going into it.
Right.
So really lucky to have, the team that has the experience at that level.
Yeah, well, we're excited to cheer you on.
Thank
we
you.
Can't wait to watch. Let's check in now with your top 10. We saw a little bit of movement. Forest Hill Central moved up to that number 3 spot from the number 4 spot. What made you bring them up?
Again, they've had some quality wins. But, as I said earlier, 2 through 7, it's really any day it's different, and there can be a lot of movement or there could be no movement in there. So I look forward to, continuing to watch that group and see if anyone poses a real threat to number 1, Grand Rapids Catholic Central. So, again, excited for the rest of the season. Those teams are going to battle it out, and it should be some really good lacrosse.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, Grand Rapids Central stays at that number 1 spot. Are they going anywhere anytime soon?
Not anytime soon. I think I have been wrong, but just their offense, is on fire right now, and the defense is really holding out. Again, high potent offenses like Country Day. So other teams, as we progress, will start chipping away. But for right now, I think they're going to hold on to that top spot.
Yeah. And what do you want to see from some of those lower teams to have them be able to jump up higher?
Yeah, just challenging themselves in terms of their schedule. And I know scheduling is kind of set at this point, but I think again, you don't really know where you are until you play up and you play those better teams to kind of gauge, what you need to improve upon. So I think that's always my challenge. And again, my challenge even to my own teams is who can we play that's better than us, on paper to see what we can do against those teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about good matchups, good teams, what are some matchups you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so Country Day versus East Grand Rapids. We have a rematch of the state final from last year. Should be exciting to see. I think it's going to be a really, high offense, high octane game. So can't wait for that one. Mercy and Skyline, 2 teams that often meet in the regionals. So, I think Mercy had a big win over Marion recently. So looking forward to seeing how they match up against Skyline, who is a really athletic team, really athletic group in Skyline. And then Bloomfield Hills versus South Lyon. I think South Lyon's kind of on the cusp. They've had a really good season thus far. Bloomfield, traditionally very athletic, good team. So I'm excited to see how they match up against each other.
Yeah, and some teams that we haven't mentioned yet this season, we're excited to see how their matchups go, and we will have all the highlights. Next week, we're going to kick it out to Sean Baligian.
Hey, thanks, ladies. Keep up the great work. Really enjoying what you are doing. Welcome into Faceoff. My name is Sean Baligian, of course, joined as always by the coach, the one and only Greg Durham. And Coach, let's just start with this. One of the fun things every year is to watch the team that you don't want to say sneaks up on people, but keeps proving week after week how legitimate they are. You brought this team up very early in the season, and they keep getting the job done. Why don't we start with the Rockford Rams?
Yeah, so, I think, like Rockford, they're in that OAA conference, and they're in the Tier 1, and they play, they're playing Forest Hills Central. They're playing Forest Hills Northern, Forest Hills Eastern, EGR. They're playing some other teams as well. But they're undefeated. They have beaten Eastern. They've beaten Grand Rapids Catholic Central. They've beaten Forest Hill Central. And they just beat Lake Orion. They just keep winning. I mean, I don't know what else to say. And, their schedule just keeps getting tougher. They still have to play Forest Hills Northern. They still have to play East Grand Rapids. They've got to play Okemos. They got to play Notre Dame Prep. They got to play Heartland at the end of the year. So all these games that they're playing, they just keep building up, and I just keep watching them here, lighting it up, not even knowing who's really playing for them. I know they're a young team. We played them last year. They're very young, but they keep winning, and that's great to see. Great to see another West Side of the state team just kind of taking over.
One of the things that I think we love to talk about really across the MHSAA landscape is I think we're afforded the luxury of having friendly debate about what the best conference is in each particular sport. And, Coach, I'll ask you, and I know that you're biased because you're part of it, but listen, I think when you're talking lacrosse, I think there's the Catholic League, and then you figure out who number 2 is after that. And that's where I think the debate starts. But let's start with the top dog. I mean, listen, when you have Catholic Central and, of course, the juggernaut that is Brother Rice in the same conference, you give a tip of the cap and say to yourself, all right, let's figure out who number 2 is.
And it's tough because, being in the Catholic League, all the other teams are really kind of jostling for those last 2 spots in the playoffs, for the Catholic League playoffs, because CC and Rice are going to be there. Yeah. CC struggled a few years ago. We actually beat CC. We made it to the final in the Catholic Leagues. But CC's come on strong. They're getting better. Their program's better. They've done some different things, and they're getting good lacrosse play. They have great coaches too. I mean, let's say that they got unbelievable coaches. The alumni chip in. And same thing with Rice. Rice is all alumni on their staffs. So those things really build continuity to make their programs a lot better. In the rest of the Central, it's, us, De La Salle, UAD, Cranbrook. We just beat each other up. Oh, then we have St. John's and St. Francis to add to that from Toledo. We're all like the same teams. Like you beat one, you lose to another, and it's just beating. It's the bottom half that keeps beating each other up. And the league is physical. We're a very physical league. But it is great lacrosse. But I'm going to tell you right now, right behind it is the OK Tier 1. Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of good teams, and I think most of those teams in the Tier 1 would probably they have better teams in Tier 1 total than the Catholic League may have, even though Catholic League has the big dogs. I mean, you got Forest Hills Central, you got Forest Hills Eastern, Forest Hills Northern, EGR, Rockford, Grand Rapids Catholic Central. You have all those teams. They're unbelievable. They're all good. So, but they're really, really, it's a strong league. And you have the West Side. It's a different brand of lacrosse too. Sure. I feel that, when I played at Western, you could see that kind of growing because a lot of those Grand Rapids teams that were developing back in the late 80s, early 90s, like the Forest Hill Central, were getting coaches from out east because Grand Rapids was a really kind of a magnet for jobs at the time. And they were getting guys, high-level, All-Americans. I remember playing club ball against Grand Rapids teams, and they were so darn good. And they had guys from Syracuse and Hopkins and Cortland. They had all kind of Tufts. They had all these guys, and they still live out there, and they're working for certain places. I remember one guy was working for Old Kent Bank, and it's just what it was. And they were building lacrosse there, and they're doing it the right way. And that's why I really kind of admire the OK brand of lacrosse.
OAA, KLAA, you've got some established powers there, no doubt about that. Some teams that are going up as well, heading in the right direction. How would you break down, I guess, the comparisons between those two conferences? Because, again, hey, listen, there's some darn good lacrosse being played in both those conferences.
Well, OAA has Birmingham. It's one of the original teams,
Yep.
Really strong. They got Clarkston. They've got Lake Orion. They're all three of those teams are solid, well coached. And they have all these. And the thing with the OAA is a very athletic conference, and they have a ton of schools. But you're going to see that keep building and building and building. Right now the Troy schools aren't as strong as they used to be, but they were once strong. So we'll see. I mean, in the KLAA, I used to be in the KLAA. When I was at Northville's, coming back. You got Livonia now developing. You've got Novi, and you have, you got Brighton on the other side, and Heartland, one of the best teams in the state. You got Howell. You have a lot of really good teams in the KLAA, and I'm not even forgetting about Plymouth, Canton, Salem.
Yeah.
They're just a strong programs. I mean, they're going to keep getting better and better, and just going to keep growing over there.
Well, to that point, and this is what they call in the business a segue. When you take a look at our boys' top 10, and again, one of the things that Coach Durham likes to do is combine one and two, try to make it a true top 10, if you will. Coach, any changes in the top 10 for this week?
Not really. I mean, well, yeah, a little bit. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Top 3, 4 are still kind of staying the same. Talking about one team that's not in a league, you talk about Country Day.
Yep.
They're kind of like the Notre Dame of Michigan lacrosse, right? They're on their own. They play who they want. Really strong program. They keep getting better. They're an unbelievable program. They are gonna Division II. They're killing it. Grand Ledge is still there. Rockford 6-0. I mean, we talked about that. Forest Hills Eastern is 6-2. Heartland 6-1. Lake Orion 6-2. I mean, basically Heartland beat Lake Orion. Lake Orion is just right there. I think Lake Orion just lost to Rockford, so that all those teams are very close. And you got Birmingham United, who's 6-1. They lost to Lake Orion, and then you got Grand Rapids Catholic Central kind of trailing out. But teams you got to watch out for: Forest Hills Northern, Clarkston, Forest Hills Central bumped out. They lost a couple games. They lost 3 in a row, but I don't see them staying out of it too long. They'll regroup. They'll get it back together. Andy Shire is, he's a great coach, and he'll figure things out. Manawan's undefeated. I just don't think they deserve to be in the top 10 yet. They have a big game coming up. I think it's against Forest Hills Northern. East Grand Rapids is not in the top 10. They're another team, like I said. They're struggling a little bit. They'll figure things out. Their legacy program, they're going to be good. And I added, Grand Blank's another team I think we need to watch out for. But all those teams right there are pretty strong. They're on the bubble.
What's interesting about this too is Coach, I noticed it was pretty heavy with D1, but I'm going to stress this again. It is a cyclical situation. I don't think just year by year. I think what you see now might change in a few weeks. There are a ton of D2 teams, some that you already mentioned, that are just kind of knocking on the door, and we might revisit this 3-4 weeks from now and see a slew of D2 teams on there. That's a good thing, I think, for the game of lacrosse across the state.
Well, you talk about the conferences, you talk about the OK Conference, right? So the OK Conference, the thing about that is that all those teams are fighting for position.
Yep.
So that's one of the biggest things with them. So if you look at that, from that point of view, those teams are going to be fluctuating back and forth.
Going to be really interesting to see how that plays itself out. Of course, one of the things we love to do on this show is we love to give you our Warrior Player of the Year list. Last week, there were some changes. This week, Coach, we decided to keep it status quo. And I'm going to remind everybody, the list that you see now, in all likelihood, is not going to be the list of the season. We'll take a top 4, and in that top 4 is our online leader. Automatically gets into the Final Four, automatically gets into the conversation. That's the power that you, the listeners, have. So let's get that out of the way right now. To the listeners and the viewers, you have that opportunity. Go to the State Champs website. Let your voice and your vote be heard. But, Coach, at this juncture of the season, feel pretty darn good about this list.
Yeah, you see a lot of good mix of kids like we talked about before all over the state. And let's see how they play the next couple weeks or next week, and we'll go from there.
Of these guys that you're looking at, Coach, this is a situation you've seen so many of these guys play, but we want to let people know, and we went through this a couple times this past week, when you send a message to me or you send a message to Coach Durham, trust me when I say this, I immediately will text Coach Durham the message or forward the message. You are letting your voices be heard, and Coach Durham in turn is asking some guys that maybe have seen this guy or that guy a little bit more than him. There is a method to this madness. There is a process, and like all of our state champs competitions, boy, look at Kevin just reading my mind. We live by our criteria. There it is, 30% performance throughout the season. We give that top billing. Level of competition, who you play against is huge. There's that online vote that I talked about, the opportunity for you to have your voice and your vote be heard. Big game performance. How did you do in those big games against, the higher level of competition? Team success is hand in hand, and are you a highly recruited prospect? Which more often than not, Coach, a lot of times when you're talking about the Warrior Player of the Year, these are guys that get a ton of looks, and certainly that is the case this year. For all the good on that list, boy, there are a heck of a lot of players that are knocking on the door right now as we speak, Coach.
And there's a lot of those guys that are being heavily recruited or already committed to Division I schools or top Division III schools, in the country. And it's really great to see that we're getting a lot of Michigan guys getting looks all across the country.
Such a busy weekend in all of Michigan this weekend, sports-wise, and another option for you, and I highly recommend you get out to do it, whether you head out to the Red Field, or you head out to Northville, or you head out to the West Side, or you head back to, your alma mater at Livonia Stevenson. Go out and check out some of the action. Coach, some of the games that I know we got to circle around heading into this weekend, another big weekend across the state.
Yeah, so, the one nice thing about, technology is it's improved. So, I know I put the Detroit Catholic Central and the Heartland game at St. X. Those games might be on internet. It might be an internet-based. It might be a feed somewhere. If you can find those and you can watch those games, they're both – St. X is unbelievable between. They beat Rice. So, those two teams, CC and Heartland, they're going to battle. It's going to be a great experience for both those teams being on the road, playing those two. But I think the game on Friday is Forest Hills Central versus Forest Hills Northern. Forest Hills Central needs to get back on track. Forest Hills Northern is trying to make a statement, and that's a rivalry. It's a cross-town rivalry. It's going to be a great game. We put Lake Orion at Livonia United. No, Lake Orion's strong. Livonia United, this is big competition for them. They're hosting Lake Orion. And our good friend Ron Hebert. We'll see how that goes. And then, Saturday, like I said, there's lots of games. Like we talked about the Heartland St. X game. But Clarkson's at EGR, another game on the slate that, wow. I mean, Clarkson's playing well. EGR was struggling a little bit, but they're in a tough conference. Let's see what happens. Two good teams battling each other. You got Northville at Hazlitt. I talked to some Northville people, and I really like the Coach Kuehl is taking. They're going to play a good Hazlitt team, defensive-oriented team over there, and I think that'll be a great game. And then you have Forest Hills Northern at Matawan. The reason I want at this game is that Matawan is undefeated. They just haven't played one of those top teams yet, and so I'm really interested in seeing how this game plays out against Northern, and we'll see if Matawan can get a win.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention another big game out there, Coach. You are one of a kind, a good man, always looking at the other guys, but your guys have a pretty good game coming up Thursday night as well.
Yeah, we just got off a win last night against De La Salle. Great game. Boys played hard. They've been playing hard all year, and we're going to go head down to Toledo St. John's. And this game got moved back this time because it's a Catholic League game. We got to play Toledo St. John's in Toledo. It should be exciting. They're a good team. I think we're a pretty good matchup for them. Hopefully we can come out on top. I know we played them last year. We beat them in overtime. Just one of those games that I'll never forget. It was just a great battle, and two good teams battling each other out, and hopefully we'll have the same thing tomorrow night.
Well, good luck to you. Good luck to everybody out there. Appreciate all the comments. Hey, do us a favor. Watch this show. Share it with your friends. We appreciate you guys and the feedback. Most importantly, make sure that you take part in the Warrior Player of the Year. That's right. Just go to the State Champs website. You can let your voice and your vote be heard. That is going to do it for us this week. Coach, always a pleasure. Good luck to you and the Eaglets. Good luck to everybody out there, to our executive producer, Kevin. Thank you very much. For everybody involved, I'm Sean Baligian saying we'll see you next week on Faceoff.
State Champs Faceoff and the Draw is presented by Lawrence Technological University. Be curious, make magic. Faceoff and the Draw is also brought to you by the Michigan High School Athletic Association, promoting the value and values of educational athletics. The Michigan Army National Guard, a proud sponsor of the MHSAA. Warrior Lacrosse, Michigan-based, Michigan-built. Visit warrior.com. And the Detroit Athletic Club Foundation's Michigan High School Male and Female Athlete of the Year Award.